Hello and welcome back to Ohio Valley Podcast number 8. We are recording this actually the evening of the first day of voting here in Ohio. Personally, I did go downtown, went to vote, had no problems whatsoever. Took about 5-10 minutes. I was in and out. There were no lines. Everything went smoothly. So, Richard, first of all, how are things going with you and the campaign?
I feel very good about the campaign, Carmen, and I applaud the effort that you got down there and you went to vote on the first day. You said that there was a record number of
I
people.
believe News 9 stated first day voting 450, I believe. Yeah.
That sounds really good, and I'm always encouraged to hear that there's a people participating. That's what we want. We want to get out the vote, and that's what it is focused on now. Now that we've started, I feel better because all of us candidates, we work and work, and we get to this point where it's now in the hands of the people. It's like putting a case in the hands of a jury. And once you get there, we're still working. We still have weeks to go, so there's work to do, ads, signs, and meeting. But it's always now it's time for the people to start making their decisions, and I feel good at this point. We've had a very good effort. This past weekend, I was in Monroe County for over 6.5 hours, and Jack Searer, of course, was with me, and of course that's the big news was Jack Searer endorsing me last week officially was really a really good encouraging and boost to the campaign. So I really appreciate Jack, and hats off to him and his public service, and what he's done for the Ohio Valley over the life of his career has been really extraordinary, really. And he's always been a stand-up guy. So I really, truly appreciate
Yeah.
his endorsement.
Okay. Well, I've joked in the past that all these endorsements you've gotten, please stop because my math cannot go up that high. But that being said, I did lose track. How many total endorsements so far?
I think we're at 15 endorsements, and probably one or two are coming again this week, including we're expecting two more. So we'll probably end up at around the 17, maybe the 19 figure.
Right,
And that includes the unions
right,
and the farm bureaus. And
right.
again, an individual like Jack Searer was really critical because he is the current state
Right.
representative and he's term limited, and that's the seat we're running for. So,
Right, right.
but,
That one that was the you said that was the firefighters. What does that include exactly?
that the Ohio Association of Professional Firefighters are the actual firefighters that take the state test, and they have to go through a very, grueling training, really, and they then are tested in several ways, and they become the actual paid. And there's a 12,000 member union in Ohio, and the endorsement came from Columbus's Union of Professional Firefighters. And what's interesting is one of their key members is from Steubenville, and he's actually one of the pivotal um, uh, players in the association. So I was really honored to be endorsed by them, and in their endorsement, what they said was really special. I really was uh, both proud of that and also humbled by what they did, and I feel that it speaks to the issues in this campaign and some of the things that are being said, even about me negatively. I feel the firefighters know best what is public safety and who would best represent the interests of the people in terms of public safety. And they made it very clear that they thanked me for my service on those issues specifically.
Nice. I will say this: having all these endorsements, I think it's important because I think this gauges the feeling and the will of the people. I think as an outsider. That being said, endorsements, letters of recommendation, don't vote. Car rallies, don't vote. So if you don't go out to vote, I'm talking to you, all of you, none of this really matters if you want to be perfectly honest. So, yes, these endorsements are important. Talking to people, leaders, that's important. But in the end, it's the voters like you that can make a difference. So please go out and vote because if you don't, none of this will really matter.
And the beauty, and exactly right, and echo that and confirm it. I'm very blessed and honored again to have like the operating engineers and the Teamsters and the UAW and also the local carpenters and electricians and all Upper Ohio Valley building trades. Those are very special endorsements. But like you said, the endorsements come from the leadership of those groups. But the key is the members, and the members make up the various organizations. And of course, we'd rather have the endorsements than not have them, but their members are the ones that do the voting, and they all are independent. As far as individual, and what the beauty of our country, I think, is in our democracy, is that one person, one vote. And that means from the least significant socioeconomic background and poorest of the poor, their vote is just as important as the richest person in Jefferson or Belmont County. That's the beauty of our country. Sometimes that's lost in the voting in the political realm. Literally, an 18-year-old who is qualified to vote is just as important as a 75-year-old's vote. So it's really a beautiful experience. And if we can grasp that and understand that for whoever is running in whatever race we're talking about, that's what makes this country of the people, for the people, and by the people, like Abraham Lincoln said. I mean, literally, it is the democracy that makes it's the oil of the engine that makes this country work. So, like you said, get out and vote. Otherwise, it doesn't mean a whole lot.
I know there are probably some folks or some young folks who may think that why should I vote? It doesn't matter. Well, if you don't vote, then I suppose you have no right to complain.
That's true, and we want to make sure that the young people especially understand that they might have heard something in a class briefly, or they might have heard from their parents. Some are very much tuned in and they want to participate, but they don't realize the significance of the power that they may hold as a demographic. Young people all the way up to 30, 25, 24, 22, or 26-year-olds, they can literally turn an election. And just like the demographics of the elderly and the folks that are in nursing homes that have a right to vote, they might not be able to do much because of their disabilities or their weakness state, but their vote is so critical that they can out determine at least the next generation of leaders. And really what it comes down to is what is the society you want? What is the direction you want to go in? And I have to say something there about, I do have to make a comment that my opponent has said some things about where I'm a radical of part of the party that wants to take away people's rights, associating me with the Speaker of the House and one of the most charismatic young Democratic leaders from New York City. The only thing is, Carmen, as you know, I've checked my phone twice now, and I really don't have AOC's phone number, and I don't think I'm on Nancy Pelosi's speed dial.
Well,
I don't call her every night.
She's too young for you anyway.
So, as much as I admire some of the things they've done, and I'm not exactly an admirer of everything that goes on in Washington, and I'm an independent person, I just haven't had Nancy Pelosi come down yet and have lunch with me yet. I'm waiting for that to happen. But all things aside, I think my record, and that's where the endorsements do come in. Where the endorsements do speak when you have an 80,000 member union.
80,000
member union, and then you have operating engineers out of Cleveland that represents the entire state of Ohio's people who run the bulldozers, the cranes, who you see on the side of the road.
Working class
people. When they endorse you, I don't think that's the radical agenda of America. I think that's the working classes that are building our roads, building our schools, literally bulldozing new brown fields so we can create a new environmental structure. When you have Teamsters that are endorsing you from the state of Ohio, they're not the radical left. These are truck drivers that deliver our food, our items that we live on. They're the first. We know from the COVID crisis, the trucking industry has never stopped.
Yes. I have
a personal experience with this.
I have a friend of mine who's a retired trucker out west, and there's nothing radical about shipping goods or being supported by a trucker or whatever. There's a saying that goes, if you bought it, a trucker probably brought it. Like you bought on Amazon or Walmart.com or whatever. Amidst this pandemic, these truckers are still running. And one of my friends and I, we were going to do a thing on YouTube about the future of trucking, like driverless trucks, technology. He's not too crazy about it, but that's a different story altogether. But yeah, if you bought it, a trucker probably brought it.
You go to Lowe's and you buy a 2x4 or you buy a roll of wire or a new lamp. A trucker brought that to Lowe's.
Yeah.
And these aren't the radical left of America. They're not out in the streets rioting. Okay. And they're not looting any stores. The UAW auto workers are not, they go to work and build our cars. They're not out in the street, burning down buildings. So when ads come out and say Richard's part of this private club, I almost laugh.
A private club.
Yeah. I know I have some close friends, and none of us are super rich. I have my cat. I mean, maybe Toby's right beside me now. He's got a private club going on in the front yard with some other cats. That's the only private club that I think I might be part of. But,
Well, I have a question. If you're part of a private elite club, I have a question. Why are you driving used cars?
well, the private club, see, it's a club of only used car owners.
Sorry.
That's the club. I know it doesn't have a name.
Silly me. Okay. All right. All right.
Yeah, I have a 8-year-old one vehicle, and the other one's 12 years old. But that's a private club ownership. But my mom is probably my best private club. Her and I have she's 93, and I make her breakfast and dinner every day. So that's a real private club.
I just had a thought. I was born in Brooklyn, as you all know. I would love to be in New York right now talking with my friends just to hear what they think. I'm not going to say anything else. You guys can probably figure it out.
My father was a member of a private club. It was called the Italian Culture Club. In fact, he was the lifetime president of the American Italian Culture Club in Steubenville in Jefferson County. He loved that club, and he served it admirably, and they loved him. And that's the private club that I recall. And the only other private club that I was in high school was the Key Club, and that was my real private club. And but as far as having a private club, that's good. Let me also clarify something. It says in this regard that private club is going to be helping to decide who's going to be the next Supreme Court justice, and I'm running for a state House of Representatives seat in 96th district, and there's 99 of us in Ohio.
Okay.
And I'm in the 96th district, and the 96th district, representing Monroe, Jefferson, and Belmont counties of Ohio, has nothing to do with making the decision on who's going to be the next Supreme Court.
I'm not a lawyer, but isn't that by the senator, by the Senate?
The U.S. Senate.
Yeah.
Not even the Ohio Senate.
Right.
And so even Congressman Bill Johnson has nothing to say about who's going to be the next, in terms of voting for it and choosing.
Right.
Now, the parties, they have it to say, but right now the controlling party of that decision is the president and his party, Mitch McConnell. So, but to clarify it, it's kind of again, it's kind of like, I'm not sure how to explain that comment, but I know one thing. We're running for the state House of Representatives seat in the state of Ohio, and we're running to build jobs, infrastructure, and make sure people are safe in COVID era, and public safety, and address the opiate crisis in southeastern Ohio.
Yeah.
We are not making decisions on the federal level of who's going to be the next U.S. Supreme Court. Now, in Ohio, there's a couple of races for the Ohio Supreme Court that all the 12 million Ohioans are going to decide who's going to be the next Supreme Court justices in Ohio. And Rich Olavito is a part of the conversation.
For Ohio, okay.
But we don't make this selection. The citizens of Ohio will make the selection on who's going to be Ohio Supreme Court justices this year. This election, there's 2 of them running, and I do support Jennifer Bruner and Justice O'Donnell from Cleveland. I do support both of them.
Fair enough. Okay.
And those are going to be voted on by all the voters that take part in November 3rd.
Right.
So that part, I don't know if they made a typo, and when they said U.S. Supreme Court versus Ohio Supreme Court, but we don't make the selection for either of those, other than I will cast a vote, and my vote, and I'm going to encourage others to cast a vote.
Well, I won't pretend to understand all this, but it seems to me if you're going to run for office, you should know how the laws work. Just a thought, yeah.
I would think that before you put out a financed, glossy flyer about stating things like that is I think
Okay.
one, it's very seriously misleading to some
Okay.
people.
All right. Right. Yeah.
I think some people will get it, but it is misleading.
Okay.
And I think it puts people, it does a disservice to the process because it's more or less a broad swipe against
Yeah.
a party. But having said that, I don't want to make too much light of it. But to me, it's kind of wow. I've been endowed with the power to make the next decision on who's going to be on the Supreme Court of the United States. That's a pretty heady.
Come on, Richard, fess up. Where's the secret club? Come on. I know you're part of this club. This, yeah.
Well,
But
see, I do go to Rome once in a while, and I talk to some people over there, and it's
the
the
Pope.
Pope, yeah,
Aha.
and
The Divine
and
Club.
then we
Ah.
have that Da Vinci Code thing
The Da
going.
Vinci Code.
Yeah,
That's what I was thinking.
that I
Yeah.
didn't want to really admit to it, but you got it out of me. You got
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
out of
The
me.
Da Vinci Code
It
movie.
came out. I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah.
I had to confess. I got to be careful now.
Yeah.
The Matrix might be coming next after me.
You know what? Speaking of movies, this has been a disappointing year. They moved the James Bond movie till next year.
Wow.
Mr. Bond, we miss you, Mr. Bond. Okay.
Let's talk about the COVID.
Jokes aside, if the voters vote you in, hopefully, let me ask you this: first 90 days, what's on the menu once you get sworn in?
Well, the first, I think, according to the leadership that I'm in touch with and discussing, one of the things they want to address is, which is really critical, is the kind of mess that's happening right now in the Ohio House with the scandal that broke over the House Speaker, which is a $60 million bribe from First Energy, and they're going to have to address that on what they're going to do about that bill that was a product of the $61 million bribe that was the FBI investigated and brought charges against the current Republican House Speaker. Well, he's now not anymore. They did remove him as a speaker, but he's still running for office. He's still in the House, representative householder. So the Republicans overturned an initiative by the Democrats to have him unseated while he was under indictment by the FBI. And the Republicans turned that back. So he's still running for office and he's still going to be capable of taking office, even though he's under FBI indictment, a federal indictment for taking a $61 million bribe. And they
I smell a movie. Yeah, right.
So that's going to be one of the first orders of business in the new, whoever takes over the House. Now, as it comes down to the district, though,
Yeah.
our people, the first thing we have to focus on is job creation. And one of the critical factors is going to be two things, I'll say, put it that way. One is going to be, I toured Monroe County this past weekend, and I spent time with a number of the citizens and officials. And it was surprising to find that if you call from the south end of Monroe County to their capital, to their courthouse, it's a long distance phone call. And in half of that county, approximately, they do not have internet access.
Half.
So I know many politicians have talked about broadband expansion.
Right.
That's going to be a priority for me. And I will be talking to people about expanding broadband access throughout
Trust me,
Ohio.
that's important. Yeah.
And it's so important because as the communication workers has endorsed me, I've had talks with them, and that's where another endorsement issue comes into play. They believe that if we can expand broadband into Lower Belmont in Monroe County, we can bring the Amazons of the world, and they don't need to be located in any major city. They like the rural counties, but if you don't have broadband, you can't attract those kind of companies.
Right.
And I'm just using Amazon as an example. I'm talking about it could be any tech company.
Yeah.
But it's fundamental to development and to jobs to have broadband access to our region. That's one, I think, doable and high priority thing on my list. The second thing is we know about the ethane cracker discussion that's going on in Belmont, and I'm certainly going to be supportive of that coming out of the ground if we can get that decision next year by the parent company that wants to make a final decision on whether they're going to build this $4 billion cracker, ethane cracker. Now, there's environmental concerns, and we've talked about that before, but I believe it is a project that should come to fruition with appropriate regulatory environmental control.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of citizens that are very concerned about the plastic industry and the toxins, and I'm very much concerned about public health. So we want to monitor the development, but we know that the union jobs that will be created in developing that, it'll take something like 3 to 4 years, and I believe over 1,000 workers to create that
Wow.
facility.
Yeah.
So that will bring a lot of economic development to our region. And I believe the plastics industry, even though in certain parts and corners of the world, and I understand why it's under pressure and many people want to get away from the plastic industry, you'll never go to a hospital or see a car in the next foreseeable future that won't have the use of plastics in the operating room and in the surgical bay and in your general hospitals, or a car that is you're going to get into is not going to not have some sort of plastics involved. So I think the plastic industry, as much as we need it to be regulated and to be safe to public health environmentally, we might as well take advantage of that industry.
Sure.
We have the resources here that are going to be shipped to Louisiana, they're going to be shipped to New Jersey, or they're going to be shipped overseas to China, and then the plastic will be brought back to our manufacturers like car industry and to the hospital products. So what I'm trying to say is we have the ethane that's coming out of the ground. It is the basis for plastic industry. And we're going to ship tons and tons and tons of that somewhere for it to be developed. We might as well make use of it here to give people jobs. And I feel that we can do both. We can do the job, make the facility safe for the environment, at the same time providing good jobs. That's one 90-day window you were mentioning. That's one of the things I'm going to push for. The other thing I want to say is, and it's close to home for me, there's two things. One is public safety with COVID. We really have to make sure we stay on top of the COVID. I'll give a personal story. My son is enrolled in OU. He thankfully was not called down to the campus as a freshman, so he's virtually learning, and he's doing really well. But his close best friend is a year ahead of him, and he went to the campus. He tested positive this week for COVID.
Oh boy!
And 7 of his friends did along with him.
Oh no!
One girl came back from the Army, and this gentleman was in the ROTC with her, and they had a gathering, and all 7 of them, apparently the girl had an exposure, and she brought it back. So I'm very concerned about COVID, and we really need to be careful. When I go to a public event in downtown Steubenville, I was really happy to see that the businesses were, open again, and there were people willing to come out. But I also was very, very concerned, like a lot of citizens were, that there was no mask being worn by 80-90% of the people that were attending that. I think that's something we have to stay on top of.
Right.
We can't afford the COVID to get out ahead of us again in Ohio. We're doing well in Ohio Valley with that, I think.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people wearing a mask in every store. I think that's great. But I want to be part of the answer and not the problem when it comes to COVID management and public health.
Right.
Fourth thing I want to address quickly is the need for a residential treatment facility for opiate addiction. And I know there's other candidates running locally with that issue, and I applaud their efforts in trying to say that we're all on the same page on both sides of the aisle, I believe, that we need a residential treatment center. We have one of the highest opiate affected populations anywhere in the country, right here in Ohio Valley. And it says something that we don't have a full inpatient treatment facility here, residential, and we need it. And I believe that's going to happen because the local candidates that are running for county commissioner on both sides of the aisle and myself are speaking in those terms that we need something more to treat the people that have had the problems and the issues they do.
Yeah, right. Well, we are recording this at night late. I know it's been a long day, and Richard's cat, Toby, fell asleep. And he's like, "Get that phone out of my face."
It might have been my voice.
The soothing voice.
My voice put him to sleep.
But I think that was a signal by the cat to say, "Enough talk. You have to vote so we can stop all this." Okay. So
Toby says good night.
Yes.
And let's wrap this up.
Right.
And he says, and I think I'm going to take Toby down to the
Yeah.
Board of Elections, and
That'll be like a mascot. Yeah, right.
he'll have a paw power.
I like that paw
But
power, right?
But I don't want to give away my secret cat club.
Yeah, that's
that,
right. Yeah.
that private cat club.
Yes, that would be catastrophic.
Yeah.
All right, folks.
I don't
Well,
be catting around.
the cat around. Yeah, right. Yeah,
with the private.
right.
Club,
The private.
feline,
yeah.
the feline club.
Yeah.
I'm going to reveal it right now. That's my private club's name. It's called the Feline.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind being at a club down in Florida right now, but that's a different story. Oh, those were the days back then as a kid. No Facebook, no cell phones. You know, if you had something
No
to
AOC.
say, no AOC around you. If you had something to say, you would say it to a person's face. But anyway, technology.
Hey, wait a second. I better go. Nancy's calling.
Don't keep an Italian woman waiting. It's very impolite. All right, that's all. We are joking, of course. Okay. That's all. I think we will wrap this up for now. It's been a long day for both of us. So, I don't know what else we need to say. I believe Richard is the most qualified out of all the candidates, period. Strictly, technically speaking. This is from what I see. And it's up to us now to vote. Yeah, Richard, go ahead.
I will add one final comment. I did want to say this. I just want to clarify. I have never, ever taken the position that the police should be defunded anywhere.
Where did that come from? I don't understand. We mentioned it last month. That's not going to happen. But,
right. And we said this in the last podcast.
Yeah.
Before it even became an issue.
Yeah.
But I think somebody in Columbus thought they had an issue they can try to exploit. And they're using it against all Democratic candidates. So I don't feel necessarily it's just me. But I even never really utilized the term once until I heard it this June. And I never applied it, and I never thought it was a good idea. And if you notice, neither did Joe Biden, the presidential Democratic candidate. He said the same thing. At the debate.
Right. Yeah.
So it is the official position of the platform of the Democratic Party and Nancy Pelosi's position that we do not defund the police. And again, I have never once uttered those words at any level. Now, I've talked about reform, and we've talked about that before. And the only thing I will say is when you work with the nation's top law enforcement agency to help make local police departments more professional and do the right thing and get rid of the bad apples and keep the good, we need police, and we need them to be funded well.
Absolutely.
So to make no mistake, I just want to say that it's erroneous to say that I ever supported the idea of defunding any. And I say this again, like we said last time, we're not New York. We're not in San Francisco. We're not in Minneapolis. We don't have $1 billion police budget. You can take all the counties combined, and we probably don't have a $500,000 police budget. We probably have 50, 60, 70,000, maybe $1 million here, $1 million there. But we don't have those kind of budgets to toy with. And just add on to that. In New York, for instance, where AOC does live, there is an over $1.7 billion budget for the local police because they have 40,000 officers.
Right.
They can afford to take a few million out of that, a few tens of millions, and work with public housing and Head Start so that people don't go into a life of crime.
So it goes back into the community anyway.
It goes back to the community. So I don't want to address the issue. That's a New York issue. That's a Minneapolis issue. That's a New York. I know something about those cities, but we're not in New York City. We're in Eastern Ohio.
Right.
And our police and our fire need all the financial help they can muster.
Okay. All right. Well, we will end it with that. We'll try to squeeze in one more before election day. Again, early voting has started. You do not have to wait to the last day. It was smooth sailing thanks to all the workers downtown. They were fantastic.
They're really professional.
Very professional, right. So if Katz could talk, he would say, that's it. It's a wrap. So
Toby says good night.
All right. To all my friends and everybody, all the voters, good night to all.
Good night.